When my grandmother passed, I thought inheriting her little beige house in Willowbrook Estates would be a blessing. Safe neighborhood, neatly trimmed lawns, and a perfect driveway for my Jeep. But I quickly learned appearances in this place were a weapon. And the HOA president, the infamous Bethany Kensington, Wright was holding the sharpest blade. I'm Marcus Tank Rodriguez, Army Reserve MP and newly appointed member of a federal drug task force. My Jeep wasn't just a car. It was a government-issued vehicle, loaded with encrypted radios, covert cameras, and GPS trackers equipment that cost more than the house it sat in front of. To me, it was a tool for national security. To Bethany, it was an eyesore parked in her manicured kingdom. Every corner of Willowbrook smelled of fresh mulch and artificial perfection, but beneath the roses and beige stucco lived fear. Bethany ruled with violation notices and smug lectures about community standards. Her husband sat on city council, making her feel untouchable. She measured grass with a ruler. She'll fine veterans for loud motorcycles. And when she saw my Jeep, she didn't see federal property. She saw an opportunity to prove her power. 2 weeks into my deployment overseas, the first email hit my inbox like shrapnel. Violation notice. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. Bethany's official stamp sat proudly at the bottom of the letter, as if she'd just declared war on me personally. My government-issued Jeep Wrangler, clearly marked with federal decals, was apparently a community nuisance. I couldn't fight this battle from 8,000 miles away, so my sister Maya stepped in. She's a middle school teacher, gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of person who believes kindness can fix anything. She drove to Bethany's house, violation notice in hand, and explained, I was deployed. She showed proof, my orders, military documents, even offered to cover the Jeep with a tarp. Bethany didn't even look at the papers. She just narrowed her eyes, lips curling with contempt. Rules are rules. If your brother can't follow community standards, perhaps this neighborhood isn't right for your family. That sentence cut deeper than any bullet I'd dodged overseas. And it wasn't just us. Maya soon noticed a pattern. Every military family in Willowbrook was being targeted. Marines fined 4 motorcycles. Navy wives cited for lawn ornaments. Soldiers punished for garden gnomes. Bethany wasn't enforcing rules. She was inventing them. From that first violation, the harassment snowballed. Tow trucks began circling our block like vultures. Their engines rumbled outside Grandma's old house at all hours. Headlights sweeping across the windows as they slowed to eye my Jeep. Maya called me in a panic more than once, her voice cracking as she whispered, Tank, they're watching it. I don't know what they're planning. Bethany had hired private security, 2 men in a white SUV, plastered with the word compliance down the side. They parked outside at random hours, cameras pointed at our driveway, documenting every angle of my vehicle like it was radioactive. Neighbors started whispering. Some stopped waving at Maya altogether. The rumors spread quickly, and they were poisonous. Bethany told anyone who'd listen that military vehicles were dangerous, that my Jeep could be used for surveillance, that families like ours brought instability to the community. The same veterans who had fought for freedom were suddenly painted as threats to suburbia. Maya's career wasn't safe either. Parents at her school began asking questions, whispering that maybe a teacher tied to military problems shouldn't be around their children. Her principal even called her into a meeting about community concerns. I sat thousands of miles away, sand stinging my face, listening to my sister choke back tears through a shaky connection. I could handle cartel bosses with assault rifles. But I couldn't fight an HOA tyrant attacking my family at home. Bethany wasn't just enforcing petty rules anymore. She was dismantling our lives. Helplessness has a taste. For me, it was sand and sweat in a desert tent, knowing my sister was fighting battles I couldn't touch. But helplessness didn't last long because I remembered something Bethany could never predict. My Jeep wasn't just transportation. It was a federal task force vehicle with built-in surveillance systems. One late night, under the hum of generators, I logged into the secure feed. Motion sensors, infrared cameras, GPS trackers. Within seconds, I was staring at crystal-clear footage. Bethany herself, heels clicking on concrete, sneaking onto my property 17 times in just 3 days. She measured distances with a tape, leaned into the windows with a flashlight, even tried tugging on the doors. What she thought was intimidation was, in reality, federal evidence of trespassing and attempted interference with classified equipment. Meanwhile, Maya had been digging through Grandma's old HOA paperwork. Buried in dusty binders, she found the original bylaws from 1987, and there it was. Yeah. In black and white, military, law enforcement, and emergency vehicles were specifically protected. Bethany's violations weren't rules, they were fabrications. Pure lies designed to scare families into submission. But that wasn't all. Maya uncovered HOA meeting minutes from recent years' letters, where Bethany argued against allowing military housing support in Willowbrook. She wasn't just picky about lawns and paint colors. She'd been systematically targeting every service family who moved into the neighborhood. This wasn't petty harassment anymore. It was organized discrimination. And she had just crossed into federal crime. The breaking point came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Maya's frantic call yanked me awake across time zones. Her voice shook. "Tank, she's here. She's cutting your lock." Through the grainy feed on my Jeep's remote cameras, I watched Bethany Kensington right bathrobe half open. Hair wild, standing in the driveway with a pair of industrial bolt cutters. Each snap echoed like a gunshot through the quiet neighborhood. Clang, clang. The security chain fell away, sparks dancing against the asphalt. Behind her idled a rusted tow truck she'd paid in cash. The driver stepped out, glanced at the decals plastered across my Jeep, and froze. His eyes widened. "Lady, this is federal property. I'm not touching that for any price." He jumped back into his cab and peeled away, tires screeching. Bethany didn't even flinch. She threw her arms in the air and screamed, "I'm the HOA president. I have full authority to remove this vehicle. Federal or not, this neighborhood follows my rules." And in that moment, she made the mistake that would define her life forever. Because what Bethany didn't know was that cutting that lock had just triggered a federal emergency protocol. She thought she was punishing a neighbor. In reality, she had just declared war on the United States government. Within minutes of Bethany's bolt cutters snapping my lock, alarms were ringing not in Willowbrook, but across federal networks. My Jeep's hidden systems had already pinged Homeland Security. By the time Bethany strutted off, waving the broken chain like a trophy, federal marshals were on their way, but she wasn't the only one making noise. Mrs. Patterson, the sweet 18-9-year-old widow next door, had been watching from her window. The moment she saw Bethany attack my Jeep, she picked up the phone and called every veteran on the block. By 10 a.m., Grandma's front yard looked like a military rally. Tom Henderson, a Vietnam vet, planted himself in front of my Jeep, American flag in hand. "If she wants that boy's vehicle," he growled, "she'll have to go through 30 of us first." Neighbors poured coffee, set up folding chairs, and formed a human shield around federal property. Bethany, cornered but desperate, doubled down. She filed emergency complaints with every agency she could find: police, fire, even animal control. "These people are forming an armed militia," she shrieked into the phone. What she didn't realize, every false report she made wasn't just petty harassment anymore. It was another federal crime stacking against her. When the black SUVs finally rolled into Willowbrook, the atmosphere shifted. Federal marshals stepped out with the kind of calm authority that makes even seasoned criminals go pale. Neighbors fell silent, coffee cups frozen in midair. Bethany marched toward them, chin high, waving papers like shields. "This is HOA jurisdiction. You have no authority here," she screeched. Marshal Torres didn't flinch. "Ma'am, you've obstructed federal justice. You've interfered with classified surveillance equipment and filed multiple false reports. Step aside." Carl, her husband, tried slipping out the back door of the community center, but 2 agents were already waiting. The sight of his slumped shoulders as handcuffs clicked around his wrists was almost as satisfying as Bethany's meltdown. For years, it hidden behind titles, committees, and local power. But today, in front of neighbors and cameras, the facade shattered. Suburban tyranny had finally met federal law. 18 months later, I stood once again in Grandma's kitchen. The scent of her old vanilla candles still faint in the air, reading the final sentencing report. Justice had finally spoken. Bethany Kensington, right once untouchable, Queen of beige lawns and petty power, was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison with no parole. The judge's words cut sharper than any gavel strike. This court will not tolerate domestic terrorism disguised as community governance. Stripped of his city council's seat, was handed 6 years and a lifetime ban from public office. Their development empire crumbled overnight, forced to pay millions in restitution to every family they had harassed. But the true victory wasn't measured in years behind bars. It was in transformation. Veterans once silenced by fear now led neighborhood committees. Maya, once the scared teacher, was elected HOA president and drafted the Willowbrook Military Family Bill of Rights. The community once ruled by fear now thrived on unity. Children played beneath the flagpole in the new Veteran Memorial Park, built on land seized from Bethany's forfeited property. And as I watched Old Glory rise over those houses each morning, I heard Grandma's voice in my memory. Stand up to bullies, mijo, but do it the right way. That's the story of how one HOA tyrant learned the hard way that suburban power games end where federal law begins. What started as a petty violation turned into a federal case, prison sentence, and a community reborn. But here's the real takeaway. Bullies don't win when good people stand together. My sister, my neighbors, and a few federal marshals prove that. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced an HOA nightmare or dealt with someone who thought their authority put them above the law? Share your story in the comments, I'll be reading them. And if you believe every veteran deserves a safe home, hit that like button, subscribe, and join me for the next story.